Hiya, innkeeper. Hiya, you two.
A drink, please. Or two, actually.
Sure thing. Actually, what name are we on right now?
Well, Aura is still fine.
Come on, that was a whole week ago.
I was busy.
Want to come up with a new one now, then? Can I come up with one?
Sure.
How about Kumo? I feel like you look like a Kumo. I feel like that's an insult. It fits. He is just as soft as a cloud. That's what I was thinking.
I'm nothing like a cloud.
Sounds like something a cloud would say.
Our drinks, can we get them now?
Of course. What would you like?
Something sweet, bubbly maybe. If you can find something that's... you know...
Sure. I'll see if I can find the words you're looking for. Dude wants charisma. Let's see. There we go. 1,000 wins for Kumo. Put a little flour in it for him. There you go. Drink for the edgelord. With a crazy straw. Liquid charisma for those in need.
Maybe you should try it then.
You want to send it back?
No, it's good.
Glad to hear it. Babel, what can I get you? Maybe something that'll make me feel like a cloud? Like I'm so light on my feet, I'm practically floating? I think I've got something for that. Did I get a new dexterity drink? Still no, just Swift Strike. It feels like a bummer. Like I'd like to give her something different. Boop. The usual, for the usual favorite. Thank you. It's delicious, as usual. That's what I like to hear. I like the new hair, by the way. Oh, you do? It looks really nice, right? Kumo braided it for me. He helped me calm down after we encountered the Mary Morgan. But I should probably start at the beginning, right? I'd appreciate that. Alright, so, what happened at the beginning?
The ship to Boreas.
Right. I was a bit worried about the journey we were embarking on. After all, the seas around Boreas are famously hard to traverse, with all the wild magic around it and all. But just before we left Zenith, we ran into Una in the midst of an arm wrestling match against Inako. We took the opportunity to ask her for advice.
Thought maybe she traveled there before.
Could have also asked me.
She was closer.
Right. Did she have any good advice? She did. With her help, we were able to avoid all the dangerous maelstroms, sea stacks, and iceberg elementals. That must have made for a very relaxing journey. It did. It was very inspiring, too. We were able to see the dancing, the colorful auroras in the night sky as we drew closer. They were starless, but still breathtakingly gorgeous. I even started on a new song. It wasn't ready to be shared yet, though.
I just wanted a sneak peek.
Well, you should have snuck better. A new song, can I hear it? It's not done yet. Thanks to Una, we made it to Boreas a lot faster than we had planned. We also docked far away from the typical explorer's route. It was completely abandoned by everything but nature's, as if no one but us had been there before. Kind of exciting. Very adventurous for sure.
As we headed inland, we were quickly swallowed by the fog that engulfs almost the entire island. It moved in strange patterns, creating unidentifiable forms within the mist that hungered for life. The thickets rustled as we walked by, and whether moved by wind or by creatures we could not tell. The trees were shaped strangely, their shimmering portals forming in their empty husks. Our own quiet breaths were often interrupted by shrill shrieking sounds that seemed to come from right above us. It was almost idyllic.
Oh God. He's killed my voice. Give me a second. I'm back with a nice vanilla Coke because, you know, nothing soothes the soap better like acid. More scary. It was mostly scary.
I wouldn't have minded strolling around until we ran into something roaming the island, but it was a little cold, so I found a local to ask for directions. While wandering around, we came across a clearing surrounded by tall trees, or rather, one tree. All of them were connected, intertwined with one another.
Come on, let her speak, dang.
Through one of their twisted connections, a waterfall with no discernible origin was flowing into a small pond, and in its midst rested
a nymph, a real nymph. Doing taxes? She was weaving flower crowns for the fish. She was beautiful, with long black hair and skin that glistened in the sunlight, being reflected off the waterfall. Her eyes were like sparkling gemstones, and her smile was full of kindness.
She was alright, but also the only person around.
So Fable asked her for directions.
No, Fable asked her about everything but directions. I asked her for directions.
She was very helpful. She even gave us a gift. A gift? That's sweet.
She gave us earplugs against the Banshee's song so our bones wouldn't shatter.
Very helpful. Did you offer to write her a jingle in return? I did. She said if we were to survive the encounter with the Banshee, I could come back and she'd think of what she'd need a jingle for. She was thinking about setting up a dragonfly exhibition, so maybe for that.
Who would you even advertise to? Frogs?
And toads.
The Banshee was our first priority. So we stealthily made our way to the lonesome lagoon with earplugs in our ears.
We mostly walked and talked about our favorite dragonflies.
As we finally approached the lonesome lagoon, the thick mist enveloped us. It suddenly became cold. So cold we could see our own ragged breaths. And then we heard it, a song filled with all the sorrow of the world compressed into a single note.
It sounded really nice. There was so much emotion in that song. Sadness, longing, yearning, anger. We wanted to be polite and wait until she was done singing, but it just kept going like tears that would not stop. So I decided to be a little rude, stepped forward and said, "Hello."
They said, "Hello, Banshee. I really like your song." That confused the Banshee so much that she stopped. She smiled, baring a row of deadly sharp teeth.
It was very nice, actually. She asked if we wanted to steal from her lagoon. When we said no, she invited us to sing along. Did you? Of course.
It was kind of fun.
It was. And I thought, what better time to bring up the Mary Morgan but now? So I led with, I bet you do this with your girlfriend all the time, right? She suddenly looked at me with hatred and anger and then just started screaming. I was very thankful for the earplugs at that moment. I think without them, my bones might have melted.
It was our cue to leave, so I pulled Fable back into the thicket of the Borean forest.
Obviously, we couldn't just leave it at that failure, so we looked around for a peace offering. We found some spiky pink fruits with a pattern of little ghost tortoises on them. We thought she might like them. She liked them enough to stop screaming at us, and we sat down at the side of the lagoon to talk. It's beautiful, by the way. Right in the middle is a giant portal to the Twilight Chasm. It colors the water this deep, dark blue, with swirling clouds of darkness within.
There were bones floating in the lagoon, too.
I almost brought one for your tavern. Why didn't you? I thought you wouldn't like it. I love bones. I'll keep that in mind for the future. The Banshee actually fished out some bones to fidget with. It stopped her from screaming every time she brought up the Mary Morgan. Or Marmor, as she calls her. Turns out the Mary Morgan had been ignoring all of her calls. Ever since the Banshee was crowned Gaia's scariest monster by Screech Magazine. She told us it carved a hole in their relationship, that it caused a lot of jealousy. She was disappointed that Mary Morgan cared more about some stupid popularity contest than her. We asked her if she wanted to talk about it with the Mary Morgan herself. She said she didn't need to apologize for being scary. She was very thankful that she got to talk about it, though. She was holding it all in because she didn't want to burden Baya with all the drama. She even offered for us to spend the night at her nearby cave, which was really nice of her. Did you end up taking a nap at her lair?
We thought about it, but it was filled to the brim with the riches of the dead, which was far too alluring for us to fall to the call of sleep.
You found loot? You have my attention. What did you find?
Gold, bones, skulls, jewels of all sizes.
And a loot. It was broken, but I picked it up anyway. There was also a delicate silver mirror that had hearts carved all around it. Oh, I like that. Kuma recognized it as magical from its arcane markings. Melina showed me them in some book the other day. When the wizard of Zoford showed us around his library. It was the mirror of far speech. It lets you speak with anyone on this plane, given that you've seen them before. So you called Melly?
No. We called the Mary Morgan.
Ah, that makes more sense. How did it go? Well, I had to be the one to make the call since Kumo had never met her. When her face appeared, all I could do was stare in horror as she gazed back at me. I felt like I was back in the Ashen Grove leading adventurers to their doom, and I just froze.
So I took the mirror out of her hands. Her first words were threats of what she would do to us if we dare harm the Banshee. Of course we hadn't. That briefly calmed her down.
Going to take a nap? If you are on later, you'll be back. Otherwise, see you tomorrow. Have an amazing day, old man Sugarheart. Thank you, Silent Sleeper. I'm going to check out your spinning stream later. But I'm probably going to sign off as soon as this story comes to a close. But I will be back tomorrow, first thing in the morning on my normal schedule, 4:30 a.m. Central Time. We'll be playing more of this if we don't accidentally beat it in the next few minutes.
Until I asked her why she wasn't here. If she was so worried until I asked her why she wasn't here if she was so worried about the Banshee's well-being.
Much appreciated. See you then. See you then, Silent.
Avoiding the question, she instead talked to us about the state of the lagoon. She complained that it must be incredibly loud with all the tourists and whatnot. I assured her there were no tourists, at least none that were alive. So she asked what I was doing in their lair then. Honestly, I replied that the Banshee had offered us a place to stay in her cave. I quickly realized I had picked the wrong thing to say. Her eyes started bleeding black ichor as she began cursing us out in tongues.
The mirror cracked under her gaze and started bleeding black water. It was terrifying. And then we were just supposed to sleep there, as if she couldn't crawl out of the mirror at any second.
After that happened, I thought that we shouldn't discuss our further plans in that cave. So I pulled Fable outside and we went for a walk. The nymph had mentioned this enchanted flower field where she collects flowers for the fish. So we went there. Thought it might be a good spot.
It was a good spot. Even though I couldn't stop shaking for a while, though, the flowers really helped. As did not being alone. Was that when Kumo braided your hair? It was, yes. My hair kept falling in my face and it was overwhelming me. So he sat me down and braided it away while I worked on rebuilding the loot. He said that some distraction would help. Talking also really helped. Even if I asked a lot of stupid questions.
They weren't stupid, just curious.
Did you have a favorite one?
They asked where I learned to braid hair. That actually brought us further on our quest.
How so?
Well, I learned it from my mother. It's the only thing I have left of her. It was her way of apologizing. She was never very good with words. And it made me think, some people aren't very direct with what they mean.
I have heard that, yeah.
Like the Mary Morgan. She didn't seem angry about the Banshee outdoing her in some fear pageant. She didn't even mention it once. She only got upset when she thought we had hurt the Banshee. Or when she thought we were tourists. Or that when we said we were staying in that cave. Like she was jealous of something entirely different from some issue of Screech magazine.
We talked it through and decided we had to get the two of them to talk face to face. Obviously it would be difficult because of the distance, but
I had taken the mirror with me when we left. I thought it might be useful.
Ever the thief.
Indeed. I used it to call Baya. Asked her to tell the Mary Morgan to come to Boreas. Fable mentioned she can teleport via plants, however that works.
She can. You should try it out. It's nauseating. I think I'll pass. While I went to talk to the Banshee, Kumo picked up the Mary Morgan.
She and I really connected on eyeliner techniques. When we arrived at the lagoon, they were immediately ready to claw at each other's throats. And not in a fun way. But somehow we managed to convince them to sit down.
I tried to get them to talk about their feelings, but they just kept talking past and over and away from each other.
Arguing about an issue that didn't exist.
So I had this crazy idea. I took out my new lute and asked them if they wanted to write a song together. They declined and insisted their voices would clash, but I thought at the very least it'd stop them from arguing. Kumo helped me convince them by summoning tiny rain clouds pitter-pattering in a gentle melodic rhythm to inspire them to give it a try. We asked them to put all their emotions about the whole situation into a song. In the end, they harmonized together perfectly. Like their voices were made for each other, and the gentle hum of my lute.
It was beautiful.
And a little bone-shattering, but very romantic. Most importantly, the song finally got them to understand each other. Like Kumo had suspected, the Mary Morgan was scared, not jealous, now that the Banshee was so popular. She feared the Banshee would become really busy with tourists visiting her all the time. She assumed she wouldn't have time for her anymore. But the Banshee assured her she doesn't care about any of the tourists. Only about the Mary Morgan, and Baya, of course. We told them to talk to her too. We mentioned how much she had been missing them. They agreed to meet for a tea party in the Ashen Grove so Baya doesn't have to travel too far. Did you invite them to your barbecue? No. After the outpouring of emotions, they wanted some time for themselves.
The quest was done. It had only taken us 2 days, which was really efficient. Fortunately, we had told the ship to pick us up in 3 days, so we were trapped on the island.
So you swam back?
What? No. What's wrong with you?
Usual. We started brainstorming about what we could do while we waited. So I asked about the cheesecake recipe. Then I realized there wasn't anywhere to bake it. They don't have any taverns on Boreas. It was a stupid idea.
It wasn't. Somewhere in the island, there had to be something to bake a cheesecake in.
Did you find that something? We did. It turned out into its own small little quest. First, we had to find the right place for our adventure. We met these lovely gnomes living in their little mushroom houses. And they offered to let us use their ovens. They were way too small. They introduced us to a local Toad Hill giant. Its kitchen was enormous, but it was easier to work in the one that was too small. Then the gnomes, the nymph, and the giant helped us gather the ingredients from all across the island, so we were able to make enough cheesecake for everybody. Burned mine a bit. But when we made the second batch for the ship's crew, they were already starting to turn out better. Kumo is a really good teacher.
And you were a really good student.
Thank you. The cake really lifted the crew's spirits on the journey back. We agreed to teach them the recipe once we hit land. Afterwards, they invited us to the captain's birthday party. They even introduced us to a traveling obelisk who sang us a song of the ancients. It showed us a shortcut through the Rhyoliths in the mountain range, where we met some flaming songbirds. And now you're here. And now we're here. Well, I'm glad you two came back. Of course we did. I promised a good story. And you delivered tenfold. Where are you two going next?
I should probably talk to Melina. She was pretty mad when I left. I guess I should apologize while I still can.
Good idea. You want me to come with you?
No, I think I need to do this alone. Or rather, with her. And I have to check on Rufus too.
Maybe Hex taught her some fun magic tricks in the meantime.
You left her with Hex?
And with Grace. Don't worry, nothing was set on fire.
I should go.